This week, Siskel and Ebert review attorney Tom Cruise uncovering his boss's dirty secrets in The Firm. Meg Ryan falls in love long distance with Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle. And Walter Matthau is victimized by his pint-sized neighbor, Dennis the Menace.
That's 4 dead lawyers out of 41 in less than 10 years.
And none of them over the age of, what, 45? I mean, that beats the hell out of any life insurance tables I've ever heard about.
Who are you guys?
Tom Cruise plays a young lawyer who discovers his law firm is corrupt in The Firm. One of 5 big new summer movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, along with Dennis the Menace and Sleepless in Seattle, a romance with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is The Firm, a long, complicated, and evolving thriller about a young lawyer fighting to save his career and his life. The movie stars Tom Cruise as a recent law school graduate who discovers too late that his dream job in Memphis is with a law firm that is crooked from top to bottom. At first, though, his future looks rosy as he discusses the firm's offer with his wife, played by Jean Triplehorn.
Plus a 5% increase the second year.
Why?
Well, why? Whose side are you on anyway?
Once installed in his high-paying job, Cruise goes out to lunch with a senior partner, played by Gene Hackman, who will take him on as his protege.
What about you? What led you to law school?
So far back, I don't think I can remember.
Sure you can, counselor.
I used to caddy for young lawyers off from work on weekdays and their wives. I looked at those long tan legs and just knew I had to be a lawyer. The wives had long tan legs, too.
The young lawyer grew up in poverty and is ashamed of his past, and he has a secret the firm doesn't know. His brother, played by David Strathairn, is imprisoned.
Well, well. A man from Gentleman's Quarterly.
After a number of suspicious deaths in the firm, FBI agents come to Cruise with a take-it-or-leave-it deal. Either he cooperates in exposing the firm's activities, or his brother stays in prison. In desperation, Cruise turns to a private detective, played by Gary Busey, for help.
Sit down. Sit down. Come on. Look, sit down. Sit down. You want some sweet and low? You want some dairy cream? You want some sugar? You want some...
Hey, I've got some business I have to go over with you here.
I owe your brother my life.
I'm leaving.
Thank you, dear.
But the firm can play hardball, too, as its security chief, Wilford Brimley, who usually plays nice guys but is a real villain this time, threatens Cruise with blackmail.
Here's your Abby, one day walking to the mailbox, anticipating the arrival of her red book, her sharper image catalog. What does she find instead? She finds heartache, Mitch. The death of love and trust.
And that's certainly a new image for Wilford Brimley.
Yeah, he's not selling oatmeal there.
Law offices have provided the settings for a lot of thrillers in the last few years, but rarely one more complicated than The Firm. Director Sidney Pollack takes 2 hours and 33 minutes to tell the story based on the John Grisham novel, and even then, there may be moments when you can't quite figure out the hero's plan to save himself, his career, and his marriage while outsmarting the FBI, the firm, and the firm's evil clients. What helps to get across this tricky material is a first-rate cast. There are good performances by all the actors we've seen, and especially by Ed Harris as a hard-nosed FBI man who offers Cruise a deal only he thinks he can't refuse.
I enjoyed it too, Roger. It does get complicated at the end. At a certain point, I actually gave up and tried to figure out how he was going to juggle all the balls they're doing. I think you, again, got to give Tom Cruise credit. I enjoyed this aspect of the picture. It seemed old-fashioned late in the film when he was on a foot chase. Do you remember that sequence?
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, this is I haven't seen a good foot chase in a movie in a long, long time. And I thought that the whole thing was the whole movie was like this, a throwback to the old-fashioned, well-made, constructed Hollywood pictures where you got one guy in this tremendous web. It's partly one of his own making. He's a yuppie. He's interested in money, and he gets punished for it. And I enjoyed the whole project.
Cruise is good in this film, and you know, I haven't really been a fan of his last two films. I felt that Far and Away was in particular a bad decision. And now he's back in form again. He is a good actor, and we forget that because he's such a big star that sometimes you take him for granted. Oh, there's Tom Cruise. But he has a lot of stuff that he has to do in this film, and he's surrounded by a first-rate cast. And I didn't give up. I kind of kept trying, and then finally, when he lays it out in that hotel room meeting at the end of the film, I could sort of. I mean, I don't know if I could pass the test when I walked out of the movie, but at least he got everything he wanted, I guess.
He reminded me sort of a young Paul Newman, actually, in the picture, and he was not afraid to look like a little bit of a jerk at times in the film. I thought he did a real good job. Our next movie is called House of Cards with Kathleen Turner in a variation on Lorenzo's Oil, this time about a mother trying to cope with the apparent onset of autism in her 6-year-old daughter after the child's father dies in a climbing accident in Mexico. Here we see Turner trying to communicate with her daughter when the little girl refuses to speak.
I have an idea. How about you talk to me in Nahuatl? That way I won't understand what you say anyway. Español? ¿Quieres hablar en español?
Helping Turner break through to the girl is Tommy Lee Jones, as a doctor whose specialty is autistic children.
You really do need to come see me, you know. Sure you haven't missed the fact your daughter almost killed herself today. Twice.
The girl signals that she is intelligent, but just blocks somehow when she creates an extraordinary house of cards that includes family photographs. Give me a break. I didn't buy that scene or many others in House of Cards, which is well-intentioned, but oh so labored in its effort to show us that children may often be more wise than adults in their ways of dealing with loss. Not for a second did I doubt that the adults were going to break through to this kid, and every time I caught a glimpse of a genuinely autistic child in the film, at the clinic in the background where Tommy Lee Jones works, I wanted to see a movie about one of them. They seemed real. House of Cards seemed very false.
It did to me, too. This is a movie that started out with some very labored and artificial symbolism, and then completely bends any possibility of realistic human characters to the needs of the plot. And, you know, you showed that House of Cards the girl builds.
Ridiculous.
I don't believe you can build a House of Cards like that, and I'm sure that you couldn't build the, later when they build the real one outdoors out of plywood, that's not possible either, nor when they're climbing up that plywood ramp in order to get to the moon and so forth.
To break through to the child.
I'm thinking, you know, there must have been an easier way and a more convincing way to deal with material like this than in this absurdly contrived story.
Let me tell you, it's easier to hire a prop department to build all this stuff than it is to write dialogue that's convincing back and forth. The film doesn't work at all. When we come back, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan fall in love through a radio talk show in Sleepless in Seattle.
Tell me, what was so special about your wife?
Well, Dr. Marcia Fieldstone, I think. It was like magic.
I want you to know that your son called and he asked me for some advice on how you might find a new wife.
Who is this?
Dr. Marcia Fieldstone of Network America, and you are on the air.
You called a radio station?
Sam. Sam.
Tom Hanks plays a widowed father in Sleepless in Seattle, and Ross Malinger plays his young son, who believes it's time for his dad to stop feeling so depressed and get married again. So in that scene, he calls into a national radio talk show and puts his dad on the line, and that sets into motion an unabashedly romantic love story that is old-fashioned and corny and very predictable, and yet I enjoyed it. One of the listeners to the program is played by Meg Ryan as a Baltimore newspaper reporter who is engaged to a boring man and finds herself falling in love with this other man she knows only by his voice over the radio.
I don't even know him. I am having all of these fantasies about some man I have never even met who lives in Seattle.
It rains 9 months of the year in Seattle.
I know. I do not want to move to Seattle. But what I really don't want to do is end up always wondering what might have happened and knowing I could have done something.
She writes a letter to the man in Seattle, and it's the one letter that impresses his son.
It's a sign.
Come here. I'll show you a sign. Here's a sign. All right. Where is Seattle? Right. Where's Baltimore?
Dad!
It's right there. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's like 26 states between here and there. Now, that's a sign.
Hanks is dating a woman, but his son hates her. One day, when they take her to the airport, Hanks tries to explain his situation.
This is what single people do. They try other people on and see how they fit. But everybody's an adjustment. Nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect...
Sleepless in Seattle was directed and co-written by Nora Ephron, who also wrote another good cross-country romance, When Harry Met Sally. This movie is a throwback to the lush Hollywood comic romances of years ago, and indeed, the Meg Ryan character's favorite movie is An Affair to Remember, which they look at and refer to in this film. The plot is thin and the events are contrived, but the movie does have charm, and the characters are so likable we hope they get together even while we realize the plot is shamelessly manipulating us. The movie is good, light, escapist entertainment.
Well, I agree with the words that you use, Roger. Thin and tired and
good and light and charming and romantic.
No, I'll say this. The two actors are very charming.
Yes,
There's no question about it.
And you wanted them to get together at the end, didn't you?
That you do want.
And you were happy when they did?
No. I wanted them to get together at the beginning. By the middle of the picture, it is so light, thin, and tired, and so empty. And you mentioned When Harry Met Sally. Now, I never thought, which I liked, I never thought I would think that film was sophisticated, but by comparison, its characters are so much better written.
This is a deliberately old-fashioned film, Gene, and I think that what you have to do is describe what it is rather than what it isn't or the movie you would have made.
No, I think, what I'm saying is, I'm surprised, and I'll just ask you, I mean, you ascribe negative qualities to it, so you know what I'm talking about. Don't back away from them. When in doubt, all that Nora Ephron came up with here was a song that was supposed to tell us how we were supposed to feel. When those songs came up, she presents as time goes by rather than writing a story.
That's not fair,
gives
Gene.
us Somewhere Over the Rainbow rather than writing a story.
Well, there are a couple of pretty good songs.
They're very good songs.
Especially since the whole movie lives in the world that's evoked by songs like that.
I think that it is just too thin to get me to support it all the way through.
Okay, coming up next, Home Alone writer John Hughes taps the kiddie film market again with Dennis the Menace, starring Walter Matthau.
Yeah.
Is that why you keep it in your safe?
Uh-huh.
And that, of course, is Walter Matthau as Mr. Wilson being tormented by young Mason Gamble in Dennis the Menace, the new film from writer-producer John Hughes. And this is sort of a hit-and-miss affair, with most of the hits coming from Walter Matthau in a terrific comic performance as the long-suffering neighbor, Mr. Wilson. Here's an example of his relationship with Dennis in one of the cute scenes in the movie.
What's the combination, Sherlock?
Ha! You're the last person in the world I tell that to.
You got it wrote down someplace?
It's in my head.
What's that mean?
It means I know it. I remember it.
What about if you forget it?
I won't forget it. It's a familiar number. I won't forget it.
What's that mean?
It means it's a number that I use all the time, so I won't forget it. I use it all the time.
I bet I know what it is.
I doubt that.
I bet it's your address.
Even better than the humor are the all-too-few tender moments between Mr. Wilson and Dennis.
You know, Mr. Wilson, you know why I'm not crying? Because I'm not going to be around my mom and dad. The only other person I want to be around is you.
But there's a story to tell. Unfortunately, it's about Dennis being held hostage by a thief played by Christopher Lloyd, who has stolen Mr. Wilson's gold coins.
Put a cork in it. You're giving me a headache.
I don't have a cork.
Shut your mouth.
I can't because my nose is stuffed because of my allergies. If I shut my mouth, I can't breathe good.
And keep your mouth open, but don't talk.
A little of that goes a long way. Still, I came close to giving this movie, which is directed by Nick Castle, a thumbs up, but I decided against it because I really got bored with the thief. There are lots of dull hijinks with him, even duller pratfalls than those with the thieves in another recent John Hughes production, Home Alone 2. I don't know why we needed the thief in the first place. I wish the story could have centered more on Dennis and Mr. Wilson, because theirs is the one and only relationship in the film that works. When Matthau is not on the screen, Dennis the Menace is dull indeed.
You're right, and you're right about the character played by Christopher Lloyd.
Wow.
Now, his name is Switchblade Sam.
Yeah.
And he is an apparently homeless person, very dirty, very menacing, very angry, very violent, and always displaying his switchblade and tying up little boys. And I know that it's supposed to be comedic and innocent, but images like that disturb me, and I think they will also disturb the young children. And this is a movie that's always going to appeal to really young children.
That's correct.
And they're going to be disturbed by that. And you know what?
They're going to think that every homeless person on the street has a knife.
Or that they might be waiting outside their bedroom window.
Yes.
Why did the people who made this movie feel that they had to go back to screenwriting 101, it was John Hughes who wrote the screenplay, and introduce a villain in order that you can have the formula by the numbers plot? Why not have the effort to write a relationship between Dennis and Mr. Wilson and then play it out?
If they had them having to work together on a project, Dennis and Mr. Wilson, where the kid is constantly foiling him, and so that they become enemies. They're so good together.
They have a common goal, but they can't get there because Dennis screws everything up. Instead of this ridiculous, cliched, unnecessary villain.
And the time that it takes. There's 10 extra minutes there. If you're going to even throw it in, shorten it.
You're right. When we come back, a character makes a journey through several centuries and both sexes in Orlando. Orlando, inspired by the most experimental of Virginia Woolf's novels, in which a character who was born in the Elizabethan age is still alive in the 20th century and apparently hasn't aged a day, although along the way Orlando does change from a man into a woman. The film opens with Orlando meeting Queen Elizabeth I, played here by Quentin Crisp, in a tribute, I suppose, to the film's very open-minded attitudes about gender.
For you and for your heirs, Orlando, the house.
Your Majesty, I am forever...
But on one condition. Do not fade. Do not wither. Do not grow old.
The movie adopts a mood of ironic whimsy as the hero's life grows longer and longer, spanning centuries, and includes such adventures as an ambassadorship to Asia.
I fear you will be quite starved for conversation and amusement in such a remote corner of the world. However, I believe they have an interest in horticulture. I'd like you to bring them some tulips.
Along the way, Orlando turns into a woman, which causes some problems of ownership involving the family inheritance.
1, you are legally dead and therefore cannot hold any property whatsoever.
Ah. Fine.
2, you are now a female, which amounts to much the same thing.
Orlando is one of those films that depends on tone and mood for its effect. It doesn't have a plot in any ordinary sense, and instead, it uses this one apparently immortal character as a device to show us the way human behavior and personality and society evolve over the centuries. Tilda Swinton is interesting in the title role. The way she plays Orlando, the character never seems quite to be either a man or a woman, but more of a bemused outsider with a sweet nature and a lot of patience, which you have to have if you're going to live for 400 years. The film is beautiful to look at, sometimes obscure, though, in its intentions, but teasingly funny, and I liked it.
I liked it just about as much as you did. I thought that the business of the sexual identity was probably one of the least interesting elements in the film, because we get the point of that really quickly, even in the first way. The man is presented as a man. We can see the feminine side there. So we're racing ahead of the picture, and we already know what it's about roughly before we even get into it. I thought what was good about the film was that as a document of social history through 400 years of England, if you had to label each of the ages, and the film has chapter headings, what was the central occupation of the nation, empire, state during those times? And that, I thought, was a fascinating way, just a history lesson. I thought it was great.
Coming up next, inspired by The Firm, our video pick of the week, a film about a lawyer that presents a more positive image of the legal profession.
Video pick of the week, brought to you by Orville Redenbacher, the first and last name in popcorn.
Now it's time for our video pick of the week, inspired by the negative portrayal of lawyers in The Firm. I thought of my favorite movie about a lawyer made more than 30 years ago, and it's a very positive view of a lawyer, Inherit the Wind, with Spencer Tracy playing a character based on the great defense attorney Clarence Darrow and his 1925 defense of a Tennessee school teacher, John Scopes, and his right to teach Darwin's theory of evolution in science class.
Well, with all due respect to the court, I think the right to think is very much on trial here. and it is fearfully in danger in the proceedings of this courtroom. A man is on trial, a thinking man.
Inherit the Wind from 1960, our video pick of the week. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for The Firm with Tom Cruise, the exciting, complicated drama of intrigue in a dastardly law firm. 2 thumbs down for House of Cards with Kathleen Turner trying to communicate with her disturbed daughter, a well-meaning but overly labored melodrama. A split vote on Sleepless in Seattle, the Tom Hanks Meg Ryan romance. Roger enjoyed the story. I thought it was light as a feather, needlessly so. 2 thumbs down on Dennis the Menace. We both like Walter Matthau's work, but that's about it. And 2 thumbs up for Orlando, the most inventive history lesson told through the changing gender of its observer. It's a special motion picture. So, The Firm and Orlando, I think, are the 2 we like the most.
And I think the nice thing about The Firm is it requires you to think a little bit.
Yes.
It doesn't just have a series of action scenes that you can easily translate and understand. That's it for this week. Next week, for the 4th of July, we have a special show called Cricks Pick Prez Flicks. Gene and I heard President Clinton on television saying he liked to watch movies, so we helpfully have come up with 10 titles for the White House Video Library that we think he'll enjoy, and you will too. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.